We're witnessing something unprecedented unfold in real time, a fundamental transformation in how wars will be fought, won, and lost in the coming decades. This isn't speculation about distant futures or theoretical possibilities. This is happening right now on battlefields in Ukraine, in Pentagon planning rooms, and in the research facilities of companies racing to build the next generation of autonomous weapon systems.
Artificial intelligence is reshaping warfare in ways that military strategists are only beginning to understand, and the implications extend far beyond any single conflict or weapons platform. What we're really talking about is a complete reconceptualization of what military power means, how it's projected, and whether human soldiers will remain the dominant force on future battlefields, or whether they'll become support personnel for machines that think, decide, and kill faster than any human possibly could. This is the third installment examining where artificial intelligence is already making tangible differences in critical sectors. Previous segments explored teachers using AI in classrooms and its impact on education. This week focuses on the effect AI is having on the massive bureaucracy that is the US military, where the real story isn't so much what's already deployed, as it is how AI is changing the entire theory of warfare and how armed forces prepare for conflicts that haven't happened yet. The vision that military planners are articulating sounds like science fiction, but is rapidly becoming operational reality. The future of warfare, according to those designing it, will emerge when you take massive quantities of vehicles and robotic systems and integrate them with artificial intelligence that can see, think, and act independently on the battlefield. We're looking at a fundamental change in the nature of warfare itself, examining how to incorporate autonomy into all kinds of different military operations across air, land, and sea domains. The conflicts of tomorrow will be fought with an integrated mixture of human decision-making and machine execution, creating hybrid combat systems that leverage the strengths of both while compensating for the weaknesses inherent in each. The US military has historically placed enormous premium on avoiding mistakes at all costs. Risk aversion has been baked into procurement systems, command structures, and operational planning for generations. But with artificial intelligence evolving at breakneck speed and potential adversaries investing heavily in autonomous systems, the government is being forced to adopt an approach that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. It needs to take lessons from Silicon Valley's famous mantra of "move fast and break things" if it's going to keep pace with technological change. As the Secretary of the Army candidly admitted, we as an army have done an incredibly poor job over the last 3 or 4 decades of just saying, hey, if you have an idea that we think could be powerful for soldiers, get it to us as quickly as possible. Secretary Dan Driscoll has become the point person for getting the Pentagon to embrace an entirely new approach to acquisition and deployment, driven in large part by AI's potential. The traditional system is almost comically dysfunctional when viewed through the lens of rapid technological change. The old acquisition process required 16 separate approval steps before the military would write a check for new technology, and any of those stops along the way could send a proposal back to the beginning, with an incentive structure where saying yes was punished and saying no was rewarded, because approving something that failed could end a career while blocking something that might have succeeded carried no consequences. Most proposals ended up trapped in what Driscoll calls a doom loop of endless decision-making that never reached deployment. The new approach collapses all those layers, with everyone reporting directly to the Chief of Staff and the Secretary, who hold subordinates accountable for moving quickly in testing new technologies and learning from failures rather than avoiding them. Kathleen Hicks, former Deputy Secretary of Defense, agrees that these structural changes are absolutely essential if the US military wants to maintain technological superiority, but she also warns that implementing them is far harder than simply issuing new directives or reorganizing charts. When asked about resistance within the Pentagon to changes that AI requires, her response was revealing. Culture change overall is really our biggest challenge. And it isn't just in the Pentagon. It's all across the stakeholders on Capitol Hill, throughout industry. There are a lot of invested incentives in doing things the way they've always been done. Those invested interests include defense contractors comfortable with existing procurement processes, congressional representatives whose districts benefit from traditional manufacturing, and career military officers who built their expertise on systems that might become obsolete. AI is already being utilized, particularly in roles away from direct combat, for processing enormous volumes of data and using machine learning to rapidly sift through information and extract meaningful patterns. Think back to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. where American forces faced devastating challenges from improvised explosive devices, bombs often buried in roads or hidden in debris. You can imagine how AI is already being deployed to analyze imagery, looking at thousands of photographs to identify disturbances in Earth or unusual objects that might indicate hidden explosives. Pattern recognition that would take human analysts days or weeks can be completed in hours or minutes by properly trained algorithms. But we're really just at the beginning of that maturation cycle, according to Hicks. The next frontier involves genuinely autonomous systems that don't just analyze data for human decision makers, but make operational decisions themselves based on what they perceive. Ryan Seng is president and co-founder of Shield AI, one of the companies hoping to drive this transformation in U.S. defense posture. Shield AI is an aerospace and technology company moving at remarkable speed to develop the AI-powered drones that military leaders say they urgently need. As Seng frames it, for the last 20 years, adversaries have modernized and enhanced diverse capabilities and their warfighting capacity. Our ability to deter conflict in the future depends on the adoption of new technologies to make our warfighters more effective, and chief among them is AI and autonomy. The competitive pressure isn't theoretical. China and Russia are investing billions in autonomous military systems, and the US cannot afford to fall behind in this technological race without potentially catastrophic strategic consequences. What does AI make available that otherwise wouldn't be possible with existing technology? Cheng's answer gets to the heart of why this matters so profoundly. The most fundamental thing it does is enable the deployment of effective mass on the battlefield. We can already see in Ukraine millions of drones and missiles being produced and deployed, but they're severely limited in their capabilities. They might be remotely controlled by focused operators connected via fiber optic cables, but this huge volume of robotic systems, whether drones, land vehicles, boats, or undersea vehicles, don't possess their own ability to see, think, and act based on battlefield conditions, and therefore their effectiveness remains constrained by human bandwidth. The future of war will arrive when you take that enormous quantity of vehicles and robotic systems and integrate them with intelligence that can think and act on the battlefield as effectively as trained soldiers. The mathematics of this transformation are stark and unsettling. If you consider having to defend against a coordinated swarm of 1,000 incoming drones, the human brain simply isn't capable of processing information and making decisions at the scale and speed required. It's a genuinely complex problem that human beings are not well suited to solve on their own, given our biological limitations. And if you're operating in a wartime environment where your enemy possesses defensive capabilities run by artificial intelligence, it becomes extraordinarily difficult for human beings to plan attacks in that contested space. In many ways, what warfare may increasingly look like is artificial intelligence-driven drone-on-drone combat forming the front lines, with human soldiers operating further back in command and support roles. As Secretary Driscoll and his Pentagon colleagues push the organization to develop high-tech weaponry for future conflicts, they're simultaneously watching it get deployed and refined right now in Ukraine. Ukraine has been described by many military observers as the Silicon Valley of war, an active laboratory where drone warfare is being pioneered, tested, and rapidly iterated based on what works and what fails in actual combat. The Pentagon hopes to absorb and apply lessons learned through Ukrainian innovation, adapting their processes and systems accordingly. What's become undeniable is that drone warfare is completely upending how wars have been fought and how military strategists think about fighting them. The urgency is driven by embarrassing realities. Driscoll describes visiting a military base recently and examining an air and missile defense system being operated by a 22-year-old soldier. The laptop running that critical defense system was over 30 years old, meaning the computer was 8 years older than the soldier using it. That's not just a failed acquisition system according to Driscoll, it's sinfully failed. The military must reach a place where it can update systems within weeks, not decades, if it wants to remain competitive against adversaries who are moving at commercial technology speeds. The learning isn't one-sided. There's been extensive collaboration between the US military and Ukrainian forces, and NATO allies like the British are deeply engaged in studying what's happening there. But the Russians are also learning and adapting, and American intelligence has observed significant improvements in Russian drone capabilities and tactics as the conflict has progressed. This creates an arms race in real time, with all sides simultaneously developing and deploying new capabilities while studying their opponents' innovations. The transformation extends beyond aerial drones. New technologies like autonomous ground vehicles are being developed and tested, as companies like German AV trucking firm Fernride are demonstrating in Europe. CEO Henrik Kramer describes a pressure cooker moment in Europe where geopolitical tensions and the war in Ukraine have created urgent demand for unmanned ground systems and autonomy. Unlike aerial drone systems, which have seen extensive development and deployment, ground autonomy has lagged significantly. Kramer sees applications ranging from civilian logistics to military supply chains, particularly in dangerous areas like the Suwalki Gap, the narrow corridor between Poland and Lithuania, where Belarus and Russia create a vulnerable choke point connecting Baltic states with mainland NATO countries. In scenarios like that, where putting human drivers in trucks on public roads could be extremely dangerous, autonomous vehicles offer capabilities that can be developed and scaled for both civilian and military applications. It's one thing to envision the future of warfare, it's quite another to move aggressively to reach it. And even companies like Shield AI working at the cutting edge acknowledge there's substantial work remaining. When asked how much of this AI-driven future is already present in current combat situations, Tseng is candid. It's being used selectively today. It's not deployed at very large scale. Much of that limitation stems from friction between defense departments globally and the commercial industry sector developing these technologies. Throughout the United States, there are countless examples of industry moving at extraordinary speed. The Defense Department has historically demonstrated capability to mobilize at similar speeds during genuine crises, but there's been enormous friction in the acquisition system that slows government-industry partnerships, and that friction has been primarily responsible for delaying AI adoption, despite many capabilities existing today and being battlefield ready right now.
As promising as AI appears for providing the United States with new warfighting capabilities, it's critical to understand what it is not. It's not a replacement for human soldiers any more than AI can fully replace your doctor or your child's teacher. As Hicks emphasizes, we're going to need everyone. It's all hands on deck.
We need our traditional defense manufacturers, particularly for the scale of manufacturing we require and their deep expertise. And we need innovation coming from across the sector, particularly from the startup community. But she's equally clear about something else. At the end of the day, warfare has to remain a human act of judgment. AI can help bring speed and precision to all kinds of aspects of military operations, but the decision to take human life must remain with humans. That's not just an ethical position, it's recognition that removing human judgment from life and death decisions creates risks that could be catastrophic in ways we haven't fully imagined.
The future of warfare is being written right now. And the question isn't whether AI will transform military operations. It's whether we can integrate these capabilities while maintaining the human judgment and ethical constraints that prevent wars from becoming completely detached from human control and accountability.